money is a reflection of your values, right? And it doesn't necessarily, I don't say that every politician who takes money from an Apple or a Google or whatever company means they are a bot, quote unquote, right? But it always infers a relationship. I don't think on either side that it's lost on them that, if one company A gives money to a certain person, it's a reflection of a relationship. I don't think really they just look up people and they're like, all right, time to donate to this person. It's a kind of reflection of a relationship, like I said, right? But that doesn't mean necessarily someone is bought. Now, my policy of why I don't take corporate money at all is because I don't want there to ever be the semblance of bot. I want to be able to make the best decisions based solely on the empirical evidence we have, right? So, and you maybe can feel this maybe in your daily life, but so say a big tech company like Apple or something gives my campaign a bunch of money, and then a vote comes up, right? Or a vote comes up about a privacy issue or a consumer affairs issue or about technology, and I vote a certain way, and that way happens to be in line with that company, with Apple, right? And then money shows up in my account afterwards, right?
Yeah.
You can't, unless you are those two parties, there's no way to exactly know what happened if there's a transaction, but I don't want there to ever be that even doubt of it, right? And then at the same point is I probably am going to vote, obviously, in more in favor of the tech workers and obviously in consumer affairs kind of land. And sometimes I know they aren't too happy about that. And I don't want to navigate that kind of pressure, right? Because I think there's like I said, it's a relationship, right? So if someone is, even in your personal life, or if someone gives you $1,000 every month, just because they like you a lot or something, and you had to do something to piss them off, you feel kind of uncomfortable about doing it, right? Even at the very basic human level. So I don't want there to be that even the perception of me working with these big corporations, because in the end, I think my voting record will speak for itself too. When I hopefully get in office, is that it probably won't be on your side all the time too. So I think it's a big reflection, So I just want to be clear about that when I take money, is like who you basically draw your power from, right? Like if you draw your power from a community, from people who care about these progressive causes I care about, then we're on the same page, right? But I don't want ever to be that question of, if a big issue about consumer privacy comes up, right? And Apple is really, really lobbying hard against one way, and say I flip or something, then there's always that possibility of influence, right? And I don't want that influence. In fact, I really think that corporations need to have less influence in our political dynamics. Right now, it's ridiculous how much money people spend, right? Yeah. From local races to state level, it's like inflated, right? It's like how do people, working class people or young people like you and me, how do we get our foot in the door unless we're like independently wealthy, right? We either have to sell out or we have to be independently wealthy, which both are not ideal and are very exclusive.
That's true. Actually, yeah. On that note, when I ran my campaign for council back in 2018, I got some checks. One of my volunteers picked up some checks from people who were in the housing industry, which surprised me a lot because I had a very hard slow down housing. Do it responsibly, let's put a pause on market rate because we have enough of that already. And so I was very surprised on why I was getting checks from the housing industry. And so before I went and deposited the checks, I went over and I asked them, I had a meeting with them, and I'm just like, so out of curiosity, why are you financially supporting me? That doesn't make a lot of sense. And he's just like, well, us in the housing industry, we're not monsters, we don't want to, destroy the city with just development. And he's like, I personally like your stance on slowing down development. And at the end of the day, regardless of whether I like your stance or not, if development slows down, we have less competition. I'm like, that's interesting. I mean, I see your point. Rationale. I see your point, but that's just interesting because, I thought about it later, and I'm just like, that's true, because he already has developments that are already built and have been there since I think 2001. And I'm like, that is true. If he doesn't plan on developing much, then less development means less competition for him. And so I told him, and I'm just like, if I get into office, if I accept this money and I get into office, there's no favors. I'm not going to lean towards your way at all. I'm going to vote according to the way I do. And he's just like, well, I talked to a former mayor in the city about you, and he kind of told me the same thing. And so I kind of knew that going into this. And I'm like,
that's good. Well, I think that brings up a good point, right? It's like, doesn't always mean they buy their vote or buy something, but but by the same token, right, me not taking the money doesn't mean I'm not going to work with them at the same time. So I'll still work with the Apples, Googles, housing developers when it makes sense, but I don't want there to be that possibility, right, of exerting the influence, because I really don't believe in that.